Welcome to the CPX podcast. Greg Clark here. Well, religion is in the air at this time of year, isn't it? Hanukkah's just passed, the Islamic New Year is around the corner, and for Christians, of course, it's Christmas time. There was a huge gathering down in Melbourne recently called the Parliament of World Religions, and CPX sent Simon Smart down to get involved. Simon, I gather it's a very significant event. What was it all about?
It's a massive event, Greg. The first one was actually held in 1893 at the Chicago World Fair, where they held this Parliament of World Religions. It was a raging success, but it was 100 years before they had the next one. So they had a century off, and then again in Chicago in 1993, where they didn't know what would happen, but 8,000 people turned up to this event. And since then, they've had it every 5 years. Cape Town, Barcelona.
And how many people were down in Melbourne?
Well, in Melbourne now this year, we've had it was around about 6,000 people came to that. It's an incredibly large event. 228 religions represented, 800 speakers, and 700 individual lectures or workshops. That's
an incredible number of events to try and get to, but obviously very, very popular. I understand they had all sorts of displays there, film, dance, and drumming. Let's hear a bit of that. At this Parliament of World Religions, what are they trying to do? What's the purpose of the meeting?
Well, yeah, it's an attempt, Greg, to improve and develop the interfaith dialogue around the world. The thinking is that with greater understanding between people of different faiths, there can be more cooperation and, I guess, less conflict. But there's a positive element to this as well. They're really seeking some tangible aims that they think people will they'll have a greater chance of succeeding in if they can harness religions and use the power of those institutions for some of these things.
What sort of things are they hoping they'll achieve?
There's a bunch of them. The tagline of the conference was "Make a world of difference, hearing each other and healing the earth." It's not a coincidence that it was around the time of the Copenhagen Global Warming Conference. But then within that lofty aim, there were also sort of sub-themes like, well, dealing with climate change, but then reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, attempts to overcome the worst of poverty, creating social cohesion, sharing wisdom among the faiths, securing food and water, and building peace, seeking justice, that type of thing.
These are pretty large goals, pretty idealistic. Did you sort all that out within a week?
Yeah, the cynic in us might think that this sort of thing is only a talk shop where we sort of hold hands and hope for something better. But I think there's more to it than that. The people involved in these faith groups represented here are closely connected to organisations that are working hard in these areas of poverty relief, environmental care, human rights, that sort of thing. So I think there's more to it than just talk.
Yeah, but what sort of person gets involved in an event like the Parliament of World Religions?
Well, I met all sorts. I've met a Buddhist from Texas, a Muslim from Sudan, a Hare Krishna from Melbourne, American woman who's, by her elaborate dress looked like she was some sort of leader in the Sikh faith. There were priests from various Christian denominations. It was really all sorts.
So, Simon, you had the chance to ask some of the participants why they'd come along to the Parliament.
I'm Carolyn Douglas.
Where are you from, Carolyn?
I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area in the United States of America.
And how are you enjoying your time here?
I am loving my time here.
Why are you here at the Parliament?
I came to the Parliament because we've heard so much about climate change, Indigenous cultures, and some of the work that I do involves both. And of course, I enjoy various religions, so I really want to expand my understanding of different religions, cultures, and the effect of climate change throughout the country. And this is a great place to get that information.
Kunal Tarakia.
And you're from?
Bombay, India.
And tell me why you're here at Parliament of World Religions.
My urge to contribute towards and to see what people are doing in interfaith and interreligious activities to bring more peace and more justice to this world just pulled me here.
Oh, well, I thought I came because I'm Jewish. But as soon as I arrived, I realised being gay was a little bit of a problem in a World Parliament setting. And now I've just come out of a pagan thing which I wasn't expecting. And that reminded me that my fairy name is Dragonfly. I'm part of a queer group, Radical Fairies. And I'm being reminded that I'm here a lot to actually bring together a lot of my identities that had been fractured.
I'm just here because I'm very interested in understanding people.
It's great. Just everybody come to share their own little perspective so we can understand each other more, and hopefully it will be less war, right?
Everyone's just really friendly and open and can just talk to different people from around the world, and it's interesting hearing why all different people are here and what their background is, and just that openness.
We are an organization that promotes dialogue between faiths. I'm a Buddhist. I represent SGI and I'm on the board of the interfaith. And what we do is we have a lot of activities that helps different religions dialogue to show that it doesn't matter what religion you are, we all have humanity.
Well, at an event like this, I guess there's a bit of a tendency to gloss over the differences between religions and, in a sense, look at the things you have in common. And does that have a sort of tendency to suggest that all religions are essentially the same?
Yeah, I was very interested in that question. I would say the organisers of this event are more interested in acknowledging where the differences lie. I heard one say that they're trying to work out what can't be done together in order to more accurately identify what can be done.
Right, so there was an acknowledgement that religions do have points of difference.
There really was. If there's one thing that's clear to me whenever I've been to these sorts of things, in these interfaith sorts of events, it's the distinctives of the religion that stand out, that are so obvious. And we heard from some of the people there about how that plays out.
My name is Bhaktadas from the Hare Krishna movement.
And what brings you to the Parliament of World Religions?
Well, we'd like to share with the feeling that's going around here of, looking at other people's religions and thoughts and getting whatever we can and sharing whatever we know and just being with other people of spiritually minded opinions.
What's your sense that an event like this can most bring to people?
Well, I'm a director for interfaith for our movement, for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and we're always looking at ways in which we can actually communicate on items and issues that are common to all religious practices, respecting every religion, but then in the same token coming together on common ground and seeing what we can do to either heal the planet, help our youth, so on and so forth.
And is your sense that there's a fair bit in common? I mean, there's obviously distinctions too, and what's the best way forward as we deal with those differences?
Respect for one another's beliefs, tolerance, and listening to another person's opinion. Not having a fear that something foreign and strange can affect us. It grounds us in our own spiritual belief, and finding out from other people what they believe just strengthens our own belief.
There's a very subtle beauty in understanding the distinctions, because these distinctions come together to complement each other. And we need to see the beauty in the differences and then appreciate what we have in common.
Yeah, so the world religions have such a very different ways of viewing the world. The benefit of an event like this is being able to see those differences, listening to each other and working on a basis of mutual respect, and that was very evident at this event. That appears like a worthwhile thing to me. Having said that, I did attend a session by a Raja yoga expert who suggested that every religion is just a different expression of the one thing. We're all branches and leaves of the one tree with connections to God and each other. And there was some of that sentiment among the people I chatted to.
I guess there are sort of risks in pulling people together like this. Of course, you want it to be a harmonious event, don't you? But, you might be sort of developing a message that you don't really want to hear.
I think there are probably two traps you can fall into in this. One is just to be really polite, which is a good thing, but polite to the point where it's just superficial and you never explore the differences in the religions. The other might be that you water down your particular faith to the point where it's sort of indistinguishable from anything else. In one of the sessions on sharing wisdom between the faiths, for instance, I heard the guy representing the Christian religion talking about Jesus as being one incarnation of God rather than the incarnation. It seems to me that when you start talking like that, you've lost the central claim of Christianity at that point. You might as well be adopting the teachings of one of these other faiths.
Was that actually a widespread approach that really, when you look at it, all religions are trying to achieve the same thing?
It's difficult to say. There were definitely some who would hold to that. But one of the panellists in the discussion on wisdom made the important point, I thought this was a good one, that you can go wrong when you take a delicatessen approach to religion. That is, where you just pick up the bits of each religion that you like and just discard
Graze
the
a
ones
bit
that
of
you
Buddhism,
don't.
I'll take some Christianity here and a couple of Jewish festivals.
That's right. And look, that is a temptation. I think a lot of people are drawn to that sort of approach. But he was making the point that religion should make us feel joy and fulfillment, those sorts of things, but it should also be, it's entirely appropriate for it to make us feel uncomfortable at various points along the way. That seems like an obvious thing for me if you're following something of any substance.
But were there really sort of common threads, I guess, in how people would describe their own sense of spirituality?
Not really. There were many different expressions. And how would you describe your own religion or spirituality?
My own religion, if you can call it that, is Siddha Yoga. The head is Swami Chidvilasananda, who's, I think, she has an ashram in India and also in upstate New York. And I've been doing that for 31 years. So that's basically meditation, chanting, repetition of the mantra, doing service.
Well, I would call it New Thought, and that's the group that I came with. It's really what I consider to be advanced Christianity, and where the advancement comes in is that we accept truth wherever truth shows up. So if it's in Judaism, Islam, wherever, if truth is there, we accept that. We don't argue with it.
Through being gay, I had to find a way that was outside the norm, because the norm wasn't going to accept me, and therefore I had to find something in the spiritual realm, the notion of spiritually belonging to something bigger. Then I came back to Judaism because I knew that I belonged to this narrative, and I think that there's a lot about connecting with the narratives that flow through us. And then I've just been a little bit confused because I've noticed that as I pursue my Jewish identity more fully, I am tending to push the others to the side, because Judaism has such a strong narrative that it wants to tell you that you belong to this and not that.
For an individual person inside a religion, I think this dialogue's really interesting because partly it gets you better at articulating what you treasure about your own background, but then it puts that in a context. And particularly, I think, for Christians to talk to Jews and to talk to Muslims and to talk to Buddhists and to talk to Hindus, you start to realise that some of the things that you thought were just us turns out is sort of all of us. But it helps you hone in on the very particular things from your faith that are a precious thing.
I come from a Christian background. My upbringing is very evangelical, and I have branched out into just discovering who I am as a person within the universe of people that I believe are directed by some sort of a God being. And at this point, I don't aspire to identify myself with any particular religion.
Well, Simon, you come away from Melbourne, you hop back on the plane, you've had so many different kinds of spiritual experiences and inputs. What was your lasting impression of the Parliament?
It made me reflect a lot on this. It's a really interesting time there. As a Christian, I would have to admit to being uncomfortable about some of what was there. But that might largely be a cultural challenge as much as anything else. I'm not religious in the sense that many of these people at the conference are either, and some of what I saw was frankly quite strange. Now, I'm very aware of the unique claims of Christianity in the life of Jesus, and I'm very grateful for that story. And I guess more and more I'm finding Jesus a compelling and unique figure. And I couldn't help feeling like some of the people I spoke with were quite confused about religion, and especially their own identity within that. Others were less confused, but they nonetheless had a very different picture of the world to me. I think in terms of a Christian approach to my approach to this was, it's very important not to lose the unique claims of Jesus. Whether you accept or reject those, you want to get him right, his identity right. But having said that, the interfaith project, Greg, I think is an important one, has the potential to do a lot of good. And the challenge is, I guess, though, that the sort of people who turn up to this event are really, you're preaching to the choir. They're the converted people to the ideas of mutual respect and cooperation. And that might not be sort of representative of the general religious population. But I think small steps can make a big difference in the long run, and I'm sure the organisers of this event felt that they were making some of those small steps in that regard.